earth behind. As she looked out across the land, she could hear his voice and unconsciously imitated it. "Ain't this a view?" Monte raised an eyebrow. She smiled dimly. "I can't climb a tree without finding a part of Blake up here with me." He drew a long breath. "Here I was fearing for your life, and you're reminiscing over past loves." "He was not my love, Monte. Even had he returned alive, I could not have cared for him as other than a friend." She knew that to be true. His death had sealed him in her heart, as his return could not have. Monte rubbed his forehead with the back of his sleeve. His hat was gone, and his dark hair tousled into unruly waves. "Can you make it down?" "Yes." Abbie watched him lower himself to the ground. Even angry and disheveled, he was dignified. How was it he always looked so well-bred? He was well-bred, like the horses he kept, like the house he kept, ordered and run by former slaves who chose to come west and serve him still, though now they were recompensed. She understood their loyalty. Montgomery Farrell commanded devotion, though you could not put your finger on what exactly he did that made it so. He didn't flaunt himself, yet you noticed him all the more. His handsome features, easy, confident bearing, and soft southern drawl were potent, yet it was something more, something deeper that drew one to him irresistibly. Even in the depths of her bitterness, he was in her thoughts. And now she felt an awkwardness that had never been there, not even when she had first ridden to his ranch to accost him on Blake's behalf after the fool boy had called Monte out for flirting with her. If she had known what would come of that day, would she have gone? Had she anticipated the heartache, would she have run doggedly to the home of the man who would claim her heart, then reject it? He landed on his feet and looked up at her. Her heart turned over. Yes, she would have gone. She would have done it all to be received into his arms now as he eased her down beside him. For all his claims of devotion, this was their first outing together since his return from South Carolina. He had 3 times supped with them, but Pa had commanded his attention, as starved for Monte's conversation as Abbie herself. She was willing to sit back and listen, to watch his expressions, to hear the laughter in his voice, to quicken when the glance of his eyes met hers and lingered. Yet she had felt more uncertain of her feelings than his, until he had kept away for 3 full weeks. When today's invitation had arrived via Will, his stable boy, she had half a mind to refuse. The old feelings of betrayal and distrust raised their ugly heads and made her cross. More than cross. The thought of turning him down felt almost as good as receiving his note. But she had accepted, and here she was, shaking as much from his touch as from the stampede. He let her go. The ground was trampled and cluttered with the wreckage of the buggy and 3 cows, one of which lay with eyes rolling and its massive tongue working the ground. Streams of blood ran from its mouth and nostrils. The wheezing gurgle became a bawling moan. Without a word, Monte slipped the Colt revolver from its holster and fired. Abbie jumped. The bullet hole was squarely centered in the cow's forehead. Its eyes glazed, the tongue sagged to the earth. Abbie stared from the animal to Monte. He held the gun silently, the pearl handle gripped in his palm. She had never before seen him use it. His face was hard, his jaw tensed. He suddenly seemed a stranger, a man she didn't know, had never known. He had to do it. The cow was suffering, yet... A rider galloped toward them. The shot must have brought him. The cowboy dismounted almost before the dust settled. "Mr. Farrell, how'd you... We didn't know..." He swallowed hard, no doubt at the look on Monty's face. "Someone got at the herd, sir. We circled round to head off the stampede from the house, but no one knew you were..." Abbie stepped away from the tree. The cowboy's mouth fell open as he took in her bedraggled state and the crushed buggy. Monty's voice was terribly controlled. "Did you see who spooked the herd?" The cowboy kicked the toe of his boot into the dirt. "I didn't, sir. I don't know about the others. It was unexpected." Monty drew himself up. "Take a look at these cattle, John Mason." He swung his arm over the fallen animals. "Take a good look. I trust this sort of trouble will not again be unexpected." "No, sir." John replaced his hat. "I'll ride to the ranch for a wagon." "Just bring Scirocco and another. Miss Martin can ride." "Yes, sir." As John rode off, Abbie held back. This was a Monty she had not seen. He had always been the gentleman, even as a businessman, though in truth she had never seen him conduct business. But certainly she had never heard him speak in such a strained, heavy-handed manner. There was more here than a chance stampede. Monty holstered the gun and looked at the fallen cows. What a waste. He lifted the edge of the buggy top with his boot, then kicked it away. "I'm sorry, Monty." "So am I. This isn't exactly what I'd planned for today." "Our best laid plans." She spread her hands. "God has his way of..." He turned with controlled fierceness. "I don't consider this his way." "Of course not. But do you think I plan to be abducted by outlaws, then rescued and set free by Comanche braves? His hand was in that even if I didn't see it. It's just... life isn't easy to figure." Monty showed a ghost of a smile. "No, I guess not. Why is it that in your company life seems wilder than anywhere else?" Abbie cocked her head. "Does it?" He reached for her arm and drew her close. "You know it does, and I think you like it that way. I could even suspect at my expense." "Monty." "I believe you'd see the end of whatever southern ease remains my own." He wrapped his arm around her back. "What an absurd notion." "If you were a belle, yes. But we both know..." "Don't you say it. If you bring up tracking and spearing fish..." "And tree climbing..." She frowned. "As though that isn't what saved our necks just now. How would you like to have dragged me up there, swooning and blushing?" He threw back his head and laughed, suddenly the Monty she knew. She laughed with him, though once again it was directed at her. "You were going to tell me why you brought me out here instead of into the hills." His eyes deepened, and the laughter calmed. "Yes. Well, it'll have to wait. I'm not of a mind to pursue it now." "Pursue it?" "You'll not wheedle it out." He pulled a sticky twig from her hair and released her. He turned and searched through the rubble. She could smell the new leather, paint, and varnish. The flawless seat fabric was now shredded, the stuffing in filthy clumps on the ground. His new factory-made buggy had withstood the stampede no better than his hand-built one could have. Abbie's throat felt like both drought and grasshoppers had descended upon it. She wished they'd brought a picnic.